Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen and welcome to SecondsOut FLEXpectations. We're here every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. and we tend to look ahead to what's going on in the boxing world in the future, as you might have guessed from the crystal ball on the thumbnail image. So I wanted to talk about something Eddie Hearn said earlier this week, which has drawn a lot of attention, and that's that Dillian Whyte, Alexander Povetkin, Sky Sports box office main event is now going to take place behind closed doors, most likely at the end of July. Hearn also said that the original chief support of Katie Taylor against Amanda Serrano, he's going to try and find a way to make both appear on the same card as originally planned. It's hard to see how this works financially, but obviously from a fan's point of view, we have to be relatively happy, although the only way to watch it now is on pay-per-view. There's no option to go and watch it in person, of course. But as long as they don't put the pay-per-view prices up, the majority of people would have watched it via those means anyway. And as Lou DiBella pointed out when I spoke to him yesterday, and you'll see that video probably over the weekend, he said that the first UK pay-per-view, or the first pay-per-view in any market, I suppose, that happens after the lockdowns lifted or eased, is going to be huge, just because people have been starved of boxing for so long. And even though they've been hit in the pocket by not working and so on, we've missed the sport. We've missed live sport in general, and boxing particularly. If you're watching this, you're a boxing fan, most likely. And we'll get to see Whyte versus Povetkin, which is a fight, in my opinion, between, at the very least, two of the top 10 heavyweights in the world today. On Sky Sports box office, you have to pay, but no more than usual. And it will be... I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think it would happen anytime soon. I thought we'd have to wait for fights of that magnitude, as in pay-per-view level fights, until boxing was allowed to go before proper live crowds again, which is why I'm not absolutely certain if Anthony Joshua Kubrat-Pu level still happen this year, because AJ's such a massive draw. He really needs to be in a huge venue packed with fans, and I'm not sure how ready we're going to be anytime soon to see stadiums fully filled up. And I know I spoke to Frank Smith as well yesterday from Matchroom, the CEO, and he was saying they're going to have to wait until first they see when venues are allowed to be used for crowds of, say, 20,000, and then it might go up and up and up. But even if we're saying 20,000 this year, with social distancing protocols still in place for AJ, you're looking at, taking a Wembley or a Millennium Stadium, and that's if, football season allows it in some cases as well. But you're looking at taking one of them and filling it, say, a third full or a quarter full, so you can enforce those social distancing measures. So it's hard to see that happening this year. But saying that, I'm surprised Whyte Povetkin's taking place behind closed doors. Because without the gate money, is Eddie Hearn hoping that the kind of desire for boxing has reached a peak now? And sorry to use the word peak, obviously given the current circumstances, but has reached a peak now, and the amount of money, or the amount of pay-per-view buys Whyte Povetkin garners will at least partially compensate for the lack of gate money that's coming in, perhaps. Or maybe he's willing to take a bit of a, I wouldn't say a loss, obviously the fight's still going to make a profit, but maybe he's willing to let some of those profits go compared to where it usually would be, given the situation we're all in, and that he's got a broadcast partner in Sky Sports who will be demanding content, particularly on the pay-per-view channel. I've praised Sky Sports in the past for offering subscribers the opportunity to pause their subscription, to not pay for it for a few months until live sport returns, even though you can still access the channels. I thought that was a great gesture on their part, but they will want to make some of that money back, and pay-per-view action is one of the ways in which they can make some of that money back quickly, and boxing obviously lends itself to pay-per-view. You don't get many other pay-per-views on Sky. So there's that too. There's kind of pressures coming in from all sides. Have the fighters maybe agreed to take less money? It's hard to believe, but given they want to be active and they want a payday rather than no payday, if it's a case of taking less money for a pay-per-view now or not fighting until 2021, you can understand fighters both on the top level and on the undercard maybe agreeing to take a bit less and go ahead with the show. We haven't had any confirmation of that, of course. Not only that, the British Boxing Board of Control in their rules have said no title contest can happen, although this is under review for the time being. Dillian Whyte obviously has the WBC interim heavyweight title, so I'm not sure what will happen about that. Maybe he and Povetkin will just go ahead as an old-fashioned kind of 12-rounder. And also no more than 5 fights per card. So if we have Whyte, Povetkin and Katie Taylor Serrano, we'll only have 3 more fights on the show maximum. So it'll be a tight show, but we'll get to see all the fights, I would imagine, on the pay-per-view telecast, which is appreciated. Kind of reminds me of some of the first AJ pay-per-views in Stadia as well, in that they were like 5 or 6 fights, and I think Froch Groves, one of their 2, or maybe both, had quite small undercards as well, and it means you get to see more of every fight, and hopefully they'll all be quite high-level competitive fights as well. I know a lot of people have alluded to the fact that with travel restrictions and quarantine issues, we'll likely see a lot more domestic fights, Brits versus Brits, and if the undercard is packed with 3 of those, I say packed, the undercard has 3 of those, plus the 2 big fights that we've talked about, it'll be well worth the money, especially for an audience who haven't seen boxing for such a long time, or live boxing in the UK anyway. What most kind of intrigues me is whether this is going to be like a domino effect, whether other promoters will follow suit. It'd be good to see the huge fights still taking place this year, even if they're behind closed doors, and it might mean taking a bit of a financial hit, but it keeps the sport's momentum going. It means we don't just have to flush 2020 down the proverbial toilet. We want to see, AJ and Pulev. We want to see Fury and Wilder in the US. Presumably that can go ahead without gate receipts, because you would imagine they could still make a lot of money off the pay-per-view, although, the comprehensive drubbing Wilder took in the second fight works against that a little bit. Canelo's next fight, which will hopefully still be against Billy Joe Saunders, certainly from a British point of view, and I know Triple G has said this week he plans to fight his mandatory against Zuremeta because he'd agreed it before the shutdown and still wants to do that. So Canelo Saunders, could that take place wherever it might be without a crowd? We hope as many big fights happen this year as possible, but I'm intrigued to know what you guys think. Do you welcome the fact that Whyte Povetkin still goes ahead, albeit behind closed doors? We still get to watch a big fight, albeit on pay-per-view. What do you think about the other promoters? Will they do the same thing? Will they mimic that? Will they put their own big fights on? Will we see big fights in 2020? It was recent. I did a vlog where I said I didn't expect to see any mega fights for the rest of this year. Well, the fact that Whyte Povetkin is going to be made available despite the lack of a crowd could set a precedent. But will it? And that's what I want you to tell me your opinion on it, because no one really knows for sure. And it'll be interesting to see your sense of things and where the market's going. As for me, I'll be back on Monday for Reflections, 4:30 PM. Next week Thursday for the next FLEXpectations, same time. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.